Ukraine, in your mind, has the capacity, the ability, the will to still find success in this
Of course, even because I am still live in Kyiv. My family still live in Kyiv. My children go to school and kindergarten in Kyiv. So definitely I believe in our victory. In 2022, I was on my working place with my colleagues because we are still believed in Ukraine, because we still believe in that work that we need to do. It's important and it's helpful for our protection. And that's why our government still in Kyiv, our president still in Kyiv, our members of parliament still in Kyiv. So it's also representation of our strong belief in our victory.
Hello. On this week's episode of On the Edge, we're going to be discussing weapons, including Ukraine's capacity to defend itself using its own domestic production, what it still needs from the West, but additionally, what lessons and expertise can be learned from this country. We're speaking with Serhiy Goncharov, who is a representative of an association of Ukrainian defense industry leaders in the private sector. Because, sadly, as is so often the case in the crucible of war, there can be a period of intense innovation. Ukraine is certainly no exception to that. So, Serhiy, thank you very much for coming and speaking to us. I know you're fresh off a plane, and so thank you for fighting jet lag to be here.
Thanks.
Let's start from, I guess, the very base question that we need to ask somebody who's the representative of the Association of Ukrainian Defense Industries is, what is Ukraine's capacity currently to fight this war? I saw a statistic some time ago that Ukraine was already at around 40% of what it needed to prosecute the war.
Yeah.
Is that accurate? Is it getting better? Tell me the current status of the Ukrainian armed
First of all, thank you for
defense
the
industry.
invitation. Sorry for my not the fluent English.
That's okay. We're not worried about
sorry
that.
for my voice. We increase our capacities like times and times. Even compare, for example, in our association, we are now roughly 100 members, only private companies. And in 2021, some of them doesn't exist at all.
Mm-hmm.
They was focused, the owners was focused on other businesses. That what actually exists has the joint revenue near 100 million euro.
Mm-hmm.
In 2024, the joint revenue becomes 3 billion euro. So the increase it's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not in peaceful the country with all the problems that we have with the stuff, with the energy, with the bombing, with everything else. Even in this condition, our company growing, new company developing, R&D providing, and statements that we cover like 40% of what we need. Probably in case you compare with what we are receiving, but it highly depends on the actual direction about what we are speaking. For example, like FPV, we cover almost 100%.
Of your own. What you need in FPV drones, you can make yourself.
Yeah. In armored protected vehicle, we can cover 100% of our demand. The main problem, we don't have enough money to afford and to purchase what we can produce by ourselves. Can we increase the proportion of Ukrainian receiving from our own companies and from abroad? Yes, we can, but we need financing, not investments. not like opening from the companies abroad, the new companies here in Ukraine, because we are still limited with our budget.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it is what it is. In case you have no money to purchase it from or your Ukrainian companies or the companies abroad, you just can't purchase it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we are highly dependent also with the support, both financial, military support from our partners. And for me, it's reasonable also through the point of view of our European partners or other country partners. It will be cheaper for them to give us money to purchase our own product just because they're cheaper. And what we see in several years, we can easily increase the production facilities. For the European or United States companies, it's harder to achieve for different reasons. For some reason, for some countries, they have really strict regulation to increase the production of like ammunition. You need to receive all the permission. You need to count how like birds that are flying near this factory, would they change their routes or whatever else. And it sounds weird,
that's the European Union
for us, but it is what it is.
Well, but you do have the what is it? The 4 or 5 factories that Rheinmetall has agreed to build here. So there's some EU investment coming in to build. That's you're not impressed.
I can say that what they are doing, what their measures, where they are, and what their actually goals. I know that a lot of European techniques are support in Ukraine, so maintaining, etc. Maybe they opening their own factories. I know when we are purchasing the licenses and receiving the technology from abroad to produce by our own. It's true. We have these cases also with our association. In these terms, it works. Maybe they create their own factory. Maybe it's just joint cooperation with the transfer of technology and the documentation of how to maintain. Because, for example, in case you receive the 777, you need to understand how the 777 works.
The M777, the artillery piece,
because
NATO standard.
In the beginning of invasion, because we don't say in the beginning of the war starts 2014.
Agreed.
In the beginning of full-scale invasion, when we received the 777, they was in different condition. And it takes some time to actually prepare them for ready to use. And to prepare them ready to use, you need to have the documentation, because it's absolutely brand new system for our artillery guys. They never saw them. They don't know how to maintain, what liquids they need, what coolers they need, or they need specific oils or not. So we asking also for give us the technical documentation, what we need to do actually to prepare them. And it takes several days to receive the package of technical documentation in English. It takes several days to translate this piece
operating
of work.
manuals.
And give it to actually on the battlefield, because it's not like everybody speaks and read fluently English on the battlefield. And you don't have honestly enough time for this. So the maintaining becomes a key point, as well with the other European or United States systems, because in the life cycle of weapon, the actual price when you are purchasing, it's not so important. The life cycle and the price for maintaining, for exploitation cost, for everything else, for modernization, it's significantly higher. And we can't afford just to receive one Archer howitzer self-propelled from Sweden, shoot for several hundred rounds, something goes wrong, and we throw away, give us another one. No, we need to maintain them properly. And with when you're comparing like Ukrainian producing something, ammunition, artillery, whatever else, cars, and the European, with the Ukrainian one, you can maintain it right here.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's much simpler to maintain because it's not so sophisticated system. It's also, it's like advantage and disadvantage of the highly developed weaponry system. Obviously, they can be like very accurate, high precision, low team need to like exploit them. But on the other hand, this small team should be really well trained.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely need to understand actually how the system works. And you need, for example, for maintaining, sometimes you need to give it back to the factory. For example, like to the Sweden or to the Italy or to the Great Britain.
Poland. I know Poland has some facilities.
Some facilities, yes, but not for all type of equipment. Because sometimes it's just like focused on the one factory and it's like several 1,000 kilometers far away from Ukraine. So you take it from the battlefield and wait like for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. For how much? For how long? And this factory also like overbooked with the production. They have no also time to like repair or maintain something, and it becomes a problem. With Ukrainian type of weapon, because it's much simpler. It's much
like
simpler.
you've got the Bogdana.
Yeah.
Which is relatively inexpensive to produce, and of course you can maintain it domestically here within Ukraine. Tell me about that capacity. Are you gearing those capacities to integrate with more Western weapons? Or there's the legacy of the Soviet weapon systems that are here. Are the new systems that are being developed in Ukraine geared towards integration with the West, or is it maybe even a third route?
I'm pretty sure that like in artillery, 152 will be not used in the Ukrainian army.
So you're going to go 155?
155, yeah, definitely, because we have the producing of our own artillery and we have the producing of our own munition. That's why there are actually no need to coming back for 152. Mm-hmm. So you don't need like the zoo of different type of system. We have the zoo with different type of like producers. So let's not create the zoo with the different type of calibers.
Right.
So better to focus on what we have. And it was the discussion before the 22. Or we need to replace our 152 with 155, or we need to keep it down. But
and we're talking about millions and millions of shells.
Yes.
So a small, that one decision is going to end up costing billions of euros. So one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about is how much of the Ukrainian arms industry is built on the inventiveness of the Ukrainian people, because the people themselves are making great strides, and particularly in drone technology. People who are on the battlefield are altering weapon systems to better suit this particular war. Talk to me a little bit about how important Ukrainians' ability to develop new uses and new systems is to fighting this war.
Let's for this come back to the history. What was in 2021? So the Ukrainian defense market was like focused on the export, usually export of services to maintain and support it on old Soviet technique.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it was like the majority of this business, it's state-owned enterprises. So it's like Soviet legacy. We exploit the Soviet legacy.
Yes.
And not significant part of the private enterprises that are also maintain and support or like providing some upgrades for the Soviet technique or invent something new, because we have several companies who produce drones since 2040. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like start in 2022. The fixed wing for reconnaissance was launched in 2040-2050. So actually they have the history. In this market, they have huge history and the huge knowledge, but nobody purchased them because the lack of financing We wasn't focused on militarization of our society. We was focused on the social program, development of the regions, development of infrastructure, etc., etc., etc. The military cost.
And this period you would consider between, say, what?
It was always.
Always, since
because you just can't afford to spend. We have in our budget the fixed fixed conditions that you need to spend 5% of our GDP to the military sphere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in our law. We each year spend 5% of our GDP to the military budget.
Mm-hmm.
It's much higher than in NATO countries.
Yeah.
But in any case, in case you have the small budget, 5% of small budget, it's still small amount
of money. Well, I remember 2014 when the war did start, and one of the major problems was that Russia, when it had greater control over Ukraine, purposefully made the military weak. So there was this major issue after the war started in 2014 to not only get soldiers trained up, but to escalate production. So,
it was more escalate the repairment of the technique because of enormous quantity of everything on stocks.
Mm-hmm.
And just me come back for a previous question. Before 2021, the picture of defense market was like that. State-owned enterprises maintaining technique.
Right.
In 2025, we have growing also of state-owned enterprise, but not in dozens of times.
Right.
Probably in times, but not dozens of times.
But now they're independent.
They still state-owned enterprise.
It's still state-owned.
Yeah. And we saw the hundreds, maybe thousands new private enterprises with new initiatives.
Oh, okay. So that's been the change. Now there have been more private.
It's really crucial change of the market. And obviously, they not entering into repairment of T-72 or T-64.
Right.
Because it's just for the fact of huge factory for the hundreds of hectares or for maintaining of our planes or rockets or preparing the rockets for the flight. They are entering in the new high technological market. And almost all producers of UAV, all type, air, ground, sea, private enterprises. There are some solutions from the state-owned enterprises with cooperation with private enterprises. But
that's the inventiveness of the Ukrainian people of which I spoke.
And starting in 2022, a lot of guys from IT, from other businesses jump in the military market. That's why it's ramping up the proposition and ramping up the activeness of the business. Now it's highly competitive market because you need to run fast to just stay on the same place. And we see it's on the most modern markets for the UAVs, different type, for radio warfare, for cybersecurity. So there is actually the focus of the private enterprises, even in the producing of munition. Also high competition between state-owned enterprise and private enterprises. And from my point of view, private enterprises more effective. It will be always private enterprises will be more effective than state-owned enterprise. It's the reality. It's actual in any country. It doesn't matter about it's Poland, or it's Italy, or it's United States, or it's Great Britain.
When the state gets involved, they start putting in, regulations and things like that, which is a natural thing for us. If you're spending taxpayers' money as opposed to trying to make a profit, you're going to operate differently. But
it is what it is. It
is. Yeah, absolutely. It's 100% what it is. But part of this also intrigues me because NAUDI recently came out, I want to say about a month ago, with a kind of a statement during some sort of conference or something, where the statement was, "Hey, Western powers, you're not preparing for the next war. So aside from the inventiveness of the guys on the ground, whether they're private or state, the soldiers who are fighting this war and those who support them are being very inventive. But they're also looking at war because this is a 21st century war. This is a new kind of warfare. What is the recommendation that NAUDI is giving to Western powers, in particular the United States, let's say, of big, costly items are not what wars are going to be about. They're going to be about, less expensive but more.
Yeah,
is that my understanding?
Actually, we start
right?
these conversations with our partners starting for 2023, probably. 2024 for us was really challenging in communication and in creation the communication with our European, first of all, partners. And you're totally right. What this type of war shows, because the wars are different. Mm-hmm. Because there are different conditions, there are different battlefield. We have like ground war. Mm-hmm. We almost have no war in the sea. Because we don't have fleet, we just destroyed the Russian fleet.
Yeah.
That's why we don't have like war on the sea in the main terms. We are not like the country with the ocean. So probably on that battle theater, everything will be different, absolutely. Everything is different between Israel and Iran because they have the border. Actually, it's like countries from hundreds of kilometers one from another.
Yes.
We have the ground war, ground battlefield. And what we see is that you don't need to have small amount, highly precision, extremely expensive weapon. Because in 1 week, it will be in the end. And you will have nothing. Mm-hmm. You have to need a lot of everything with reasonable price. And to be afford to renew these stocks because it wouldn't stop in 1 week, it wouldn't stop in 2 weeks, and your calculations, and you will conquer whatever else in 2 weeks. Usually, the battlefields give the absolutely opposite answer for your question. It actually was also with the Russian. They also expect to finish this special operation,
special military SMO, the special military
several
operation.
Weeks, and
yes, they brought their dress uniforms,
and they prepare all the machine for the several weeks. What was in 2022 actually? They has the limited quantity of stuff with limited quantity of ready to use technique, and when 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, half year goes and war is still going, for them it was also the challenge. Mm-hmm. And that's why they start to renew from the stocks all this technique because of highly losses. Actually, in 2022, the main donation of technique and ammunition to Ukraine was the Russia. Because we received more tanks from Russia than from all our partners.
Captured, yes, and
more artillery system from Russia than from all other countries. The only direction where our partners are leading is in the planes, helicopters, because we captured probably only one helicopter and no plane for now.
Well, there's that famous image of the Ukrainian tractor pulling a T-72 or whatever it was.
It was like hundreds and hundreds of the captured Russian technique because of their vision of the battlefield. And they was also not ready to this kind of war that we are starting with them because they never believed that we will protect our own land.
So they underestimated you
They
badly.
still consider that we are the part of Russia.
Yeah.
We are
You're just a small little colony, part of the former Russian Empire.
Yeah, they still have these imaginations that a big and mighty empire, and everybody who speaks Russian, or at least understands Russian, it's the part of Russian Federation and Russian Empire, actually, because it's not a federation. It's just empire.
Look, with these metrics in mind, the fact that Ukraine is being highly adaptive and has made, the Russians are making changes too.
Yeah.
They're adapting to the modern battlefield, but you're right in that every war is slightly different, but there are milestone moments. This will be considered the first drone war.
Yes.
When the history of this war is written. Given the metrics of how Ukraine is changing its defense industry to deal with the tactics on the ground and the way Russia is its military industry under sanctions is dealing with.
They doesn't care about the sanctions.
They don't care about this. I'm they're still getting oil and gas out and all the rest.
They still get the components for them.
And they still get the components. But my question is, given the change in the industries, can Ukraine outlast? Can it keep producing the weapons that it needs to keep the war and the defensive lines maintained?
Yes, of course. We have really high mobility of the industries. We have the huge experience of relocation of industries. Unfortunately, we have the huge experience for rebuilding industries from the scratch, because some of the Ukrainian factories was hit several times.
Mm-hmm.
And they restart the production facilities, sometimes with increasing of quality, because the old machinery tools was destroyed and they purchased the new one that are better.
Mm-hmm.
It's like what I saw on the European industry companies when some machinery from the middle of 60s. They ask why you still use this historical part of the state of art. It's working.
Yeah, well, the M11. Look at the M113. I was out in Chasiv Yar at one point, and I spoke with a team that was using an M113, which is Vietnam era, prior to Vietnam era U.S. equipment, and they were like, "Hey, it does the job. I mean, look at the shrapnel marks across the armor, the hull of this vehicle." That would have killed one of us.
Yes.
So, and then of course you have the Bradley, which is not new technology, but
I'm
alive. I will tell you this, and I make this story. I tell this story as often as I can, because when we talk about the Bradley, I'm alive today because I was in a Bradley in Sadr City in Iraq that came under an ambush for hours. We were attacked, and I'm still alive to talk to you about it. And I know Ukrainians love the Bradley.
Yeah.
So
it's really good, reliable, powerful, and really user-friendly technique.
So that leads me to ask, obviously, there are some places where Ukraine can produce its own assets.
Yeah.
But there are things like the Bradley or the M113, which the West has massive stockpiles of. And, of course, we look at the Patriot. I mean, we're going through an intense period right now as we're recording here in mid-June, an intense period of attacks that we clearly don't have the air defense that we used to have. What does the West need to provide that Ukrainian domestic arms producers can't?
You're absolutely right. We have the lack of the anti-air system. That's why we're developing solutions against the Shaheds with the drones.
Mm-hmm.
And probably in the nearest time we will receive several really reliable and effective solution and cost-effective solution against the Shaheds.
Mm-hmm.
But against the planes, against the rockets, you still need to have the anti-air rocket. And it's the problem not only for Ukraine. It's the problem all over the world, because the stocks are not unlimited. And you need to produce it in huge quantities. And now it becomes more complicated because you rely on a lot of subcontractors. What actually happens with United States when they start to renew the Stinger, they have not enough staff, and they have the subcontractor who previously produced the components of the Stinger. So they need to change the components. So recreate the Stinger, the compare that it was on the stock, because it was produced like 20, 25 years ago, and some companies doesn't exist. And what actually was also interesting in the cooperation and communication with the United States company, I speak with the Lockheed Martin on the exhibition. We are interested in this laser-guided munition that was previously developed by Martin Marietta and, as I remember, Texas Industries. And Martin Marietta doesn't exist for now. It's become the part of the Lockheed Martin. And Lockheed Martin doesn't involved now in the producing of artillery. They're absolutely focused on the aircrafts. And I said, we need this technical documentation. We can purchase it. We can make the joint venture. We can pay the royalty. Please find this documentation for these munitions that you stopped producing decades ago. We honestly don't know where it is. we need to check because it comes from the middle of 80s. So you need to.
That is the behemoth that is the American arms industry. It is so enormous. That you're right. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack for some of this stuff.
Each other. You need to check where the rights
and different bills go through Congress, and so different people get different contracts, and some industries thrive, and some industries wither, and some industries go into control. I sympathize so deeply with Ukraine's struggle to deal with that huge logistic.
It's challenging, but as you said, we are depend on the battlefield armored protected technique on the trucks, starting with M113 and then Bradley or the similar models. With this quantity on the stocks, we can use the M113 for the several years because there are thousands of them, and we have the several companies who are actually really good in modernization of M113. Because I remember I'm in 2024 I work as a deputy minister of Interior Affairs and National Guard, who are actually under umbrella of Ministry of Interior, received first M113, and they was in for medical evacuation mission. Absolutely zero.
Or as a mobile control point kind of.
And there was zero of medical equipment. It was just highlighted that it's for medical evacuation.
Right.
And the first things that our National Guard does, they install the Browning.
Oh, the M2, the Ma-Deuce. Ma-Deuce. I love the Ma-Deuce. So over there, of course, a Humvee mounting an M2 50 caliber machine gun, the good old Ma-Deuce. This is your tax dollars at work, folks. And
they actually transfer medical evacuation for the assault vehicle because in 2024
again Ukrainian inventiveness.
It's because of the lack of everything.
Well, you have to make do with what you got.
In case you have obviously in case you have the options to use the Bradley or M113 to attack the Russian positions, you obviously use the Bradley. In case you have the options M113 or Toyota Hilux, you will choose the M113. And in 2022 it was the Mitsubishi L200 or Toyota Hilux was the assault technique. Max Pro, it's not the technique for attacking. It's MRAP. It's for positions behind the front line, far away behind the front line. But in nowadays, it's quite good. Even Humvee, we have several thousands probably Humvee now.
I see them all over the place.
And it's definitely wasn't projected to go to attack the position of the enemy. It's for the convoys, for the support, for the logistic, for a lot of things, but not for attacking. But because of the lack of the protected vehicles on the truck, like Bradley, like Marder, like CV90, like whatever else. Our military guys should use what they have. And in this case, M113 is still good. You need to install the proper weapon. You can protect with additional armor. You can put additional optical sensors. You can put the jamming system against the drones. And you can install the new engine. Because we have several projects for remotorizing of the M113. And the response, it's like, it becomes like bullet of Formula One. Because of the increasing of the power of and speed is like an enormous, so it becomes much better just because you replace 60 years old engine with the new modern,
which is something that Ukrainians can do. They have the technological capability to do those upgrades, and that's however, having said that, to my audience, we have a massive stockpile of M113s, of Bradleys just sitting out there mothballed. And if we just would have the will to send them over here, Ukrainians could make them very much viable. I mean,
actually,
the Bradley is...
in case in 2022 we had received everything that we asked, probably the war stopped in 2022. Because in that time, we have like more or less similar quantity of the army on the battlefield. We was lacking ammunition, we was lacking technique, we was a lack of air defense, but we have enough of stuff. We mobilized a lot and create the parity between the Russians on the battlefield and Ukrainian. That's why we have this really tremendous special operation in Kharkiv region. Russia didn't expect that.
No, I remember the Kharkiv
region,
and Kherson.
They didn't expect them. But
then sadly, the West got anxious and they let Russia build up its defenses so that then
we still appreciate with all the support because we understand that nobody owns us nothing. Even we have signed this Budapest memo. Unfortunately, everybody doesn't care about this. The world policy and diplomacy, it's like better to do nothing. They
want to stick their head in the sand and pretend that it's not happening. Is my opinion. My opinion is that the Western powers are so frankly feckless and terrified of the Russian nuclear threat that they're
Russians still have the huge and good advertising machine.
Well, this is what I wanted to ask you actually, because and I've got other questions to ask you, but this is one that I wanted to get to definitely, and that is why Ukraine has had success after success after success. They took back, as you described in the offensive, they took back Kharkiv and Kherson at the very beginning of the war. They have defeated the Black Sea Fleet, either sunk it or forced it to go to the eastern shores of the sea without having a navy. And now we've just had Spiderweb, in which this incredibly inventive and strategically.
Something happens with Russian strategic aviation.
And Ukraine keeps having victory after victory after victory, but the narrative is still that Russia is an inevitable power and that Ukraine must sue for peace because if they don't, then they will definitely lose, even after all these victories. So
because they spend the billions for the public opinion. It's the also disadvantage of the democracy society because you have the plural opinion for everything. You can discuss that the earth are flat and protect this stupid idea and stupid opinion with all your possibilities. And Russia invests millions and millions in the fake news, in the alternative reality, in describing how big and powerful they are, in describing how huge culture and legacy they have, in describing how that they're not even started. And the worst thing and worst scenario that it's also taken in mind not only for the common citizen in the middle of nowhere who even highly difficult to understand where the Russia and where the Ukraine. But sometimes the big policymakers also believe in this shit.
There are members of Trump's administration and cabinet that believe this myth of the unstoppability of Russia.
You know, there are some animals, when they are attacked by the predator, they standing on their feet and pretend they are bigger. So it's actually what Russia is super good in this.
The only times they have won the major wars that they're so proud of, actually they won when they were part of an alliance or a coalition.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we pierce this myth, but I mean, you're right. They spend millions of dollars. They get people in Western governments believing this mythology. And so it doesn't matter how many Bogdans you make or how many, I'm saying this facetiously, but if you can't win this war of minds, this war is just going to drag on, until the West decides
unfortunately,
that it's time to really fully back Ukraine.
I'm pretty sure that in 2022, we won this information campaign and defeat Russia in an informational, and they lost. They don't understand what they need to do, and they have one loss against the other, and they don't understand how to respond and how to spread this information, both in their own society and abroad. But in 2022, 23, 24, and now they're quite confident. They create this bulb, and they spread this fake again and again. And
you haven't got the cards. You haven't got the cards. Russia has all the cards. Well, that's not. And then Spiderweb happens, and we still have cards.
As the dictator of Russia said, we even not started. And it's so miserable and funny when you see that they almost didn't use the main battle tanks on the battlefield and used the civil cars for attacks. And usually they just threw the troopers, because it was always the life of the Russian, for the Russian Empire was zero. And they just throw in this.
Well, this concept
quantity.
we can get to Odessa, we can get to Kiev, we can conquer all of Ukraine. We just don't want to.
Yeah,
yet.
they just don't want. They just don't want.
That doesn't make any sense. You've lost over 1 million men now, Russia.
But
the narrative that they spin to the West, and the West just accepts it, is that we're an inevitability. We're just taking our time. We're doing it in our own. But no, you don't have the capacity, Russia.
Yes.
That's the message I keep trying to send, and I can't get it.
I
can't seem to get traction.
The same technique that was in the Nazi Germany. They're absolutely Goebbels techniques.
That's a good point.
It's easy to believe in ridiculous things if they're extremely ridiculous. They're so ridiculous, so maybe it's true, because you can't imagine that the government...
After the fall of France, the Wehrmacht was seen as this inevitability, this juggernaut that couldn't be beaten, and then, of course, eventually it was. I think you're right. I think destroying the myth of Russia's
we are trying to do
power
each day on the battlefield. This war, it's like the Hunger Games. It's war online. And even for them, it's hard to deny that they have the losses. It was so incredible when they said, "Oh, we will repair this submarine," and you see this submarine that's totally destroyed. "Oh, we'll repair this strategic plane," and they absolutely scratch. There's nothing left there.
All our A-50s, they were all, we'll fix them all.
We will fix them. It's okay. They will fix them. So it's actually okay with the Russian society. It's the same like in North Korea. North Korea several times won the championship in football in North Korea. They several times won the Olympic Games in North Korea because on the television.
Serhiy, you're speaking to an American. We have a thing called a World Series in baseball, which involves basically us and the Canadians. So I don't know how that's a World Series. I agree with you. I get your point. We have to destroy this myth, and I'm hoping that we who love Ukraine and support Ukraine can do that because it's a bunch of bull. However, I have to say also that there does seem to be growing traction in certain parts of the world that relied on Soviet technology in the past or who see Ukraine's successes on the battlefield for what they are. Aside from the politics and aside from the disinformation and the information warfare campaign that Russia's doing, there are places like you just returned from Indonesia. There are the certain countries that are looking at a completely new paradigm in what to buy, where to spend their money for a post-Ukraine world of war, where it's drones and it's, as you mentioned, So are you finding traction in selling Ukrainian arms because of the success Ukraine is having on the battlefield?
We are looking at these possibilities because it's not because we want earn all money on the wars. Sometimes we have the situation when we have all our capacity 30%. What we are product is 30% of our capacity, and by the education, I'm economist, and obviously, in case you just involve only 30% of your capacity, your price is higher. It's actually why the Chinese product is so cheap, because of enormous quantity of product that they are producing. They are not producing 1 cup or 10 cup. They will produce millions. That's why the production cost of 1 unit will decrease. Mm-hmm. And what we also try to explain for our government is allow us to export what we are not sell to Ukrainian army. In case you don't have money, why you stop us to give possibility to receive this money?
And you feel that the industry has the capacity to both provide for what Ukraine needs
easily,
and to provide income
easily
to help buy Western weapons.
Absolutely, easily. And the result for the economy and for military will be only positive, because with the additional input of the foreign currency for items that we will sell, it's additional taxes that are going to the military purpose. With increasing of quantity of the products that we are producing on the factory, we decrease the price for our military because of the scale. In case you're increasing the scale, you're decreasing the price.
So
it's how the economy works.
If you can mass produce drones and you can sell 15% of those drones and get an income back that allows you to then buy Patriot missile systems to defend the cities, this is good economics, aside from good tactical decision-making.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. What we see, for example, let's compare with Israel. Does they stop export their military products? No. They still continue to produce, also because of two factors. You need to increase the scale to reduce the price. You need to earn money to pay taxes, to give possibility for your government to purchase this additional weapon for their needs from your company. So it's just the war, it's the part of the economy the part of the war. Mm. It's always mixed, and there are actually no reason to not allow this export. Sometimes we can export this kind of items that are never will used on the battlefields again, because battlefield changed. Mm-hmm. And you always need to adapt to your actual counterpart. Some solution from the FPV drones doesn't work in Ukraine anymore, because Russian understand how to fight with them, and the effectiveness is and go to the zero. So it doesn't matter.
But maybe some other regional power somewhere that doesn't have a potential enemy that has that capacity would be interested in buying the stockpile you have left over.
Why we actually so highly developed the radio warfare jamming system and mobile jamming system? Because we have this kind of enemy. Why it wasn't developed in Afghanistan or, I don't know, Iraq? because that enemy
Ethiopia and Eritrea.
they hadn't these problems, and they didn't create these problems for United States or European armies because of the level of development. That's why the MRAP was designed, because maximum threat was the anti-tank mine hiding on the road, or the shell for 155, 152 put it in the ground. So
made
you
into
need
IEDs. Yes.
yeah, you need to protect against the explosion. You don't need to protect against the FPV. So
You need to consider the enemy that you're fighting.
always.
And so if you can find a market
Yeah.
for some of the things that, well, this is
Actually,
fascinating.
why the European countries' army looks like that? For example, the France. They have high mobility, small amount, well-trained army, but really compact one, with not a lot of tanks, because their focus was abroad. They was highly represented in Africa, in Asia. They need to have the mobility. They don't plan to fight again with the Germans.
Right.
Or the Italians, or with the Spain, because they're like in the center of Europe, and from each part, the NATO country, European Union country, so they are close with the allies. Everything can change, but for now, their focus was abroad, and that's why they create that solution that they have, because they was focused for. Not this kind of conflict. This kind of conflict, it's mixed between the First World War and Third World War. Even not Second World War. Because we have, robots, drones, radio warfare, and the tranche hiding everything under the ground and create the First World War fortification systems. So it's crazy mix. It's
like
crazy
trench warfare, but with AI,
but with the
and
robots,
drones.
But with the AI robots. So, and now AI highly developing in this sphere. Military market, it's a growing market. Military AI, it's even more growing market. The one of the, as I understand, owner of Spotify invest like several days ago $600 million in the German company who operate in the AI solution for the military, for the drones.
So I guess as we kind of start to wrap up here, I guess I need to ask you this question as somebody who is a representative of an association developing weapons for the future. Where do you see development happening for the war as war now is changing from everything we're seeing on the battlefield here in Ukraine? What do modern governments and militaries need to be investing in to fight the next war, not the last war?
The AI will receive more and more impact on the battlefield, and we have a lot of solutions with AI. Definitely cheap anti-air solution, because there are cheap problems that you need to deal with. Because, for example, the price of Shahed is like probably near $100,000 and you can't afford to hit it with the missile for €3 million.
Yeah. You can't use a Patriot missile system against a Shahed. It'd be a waste.
You can, but you don't need. You need to find a new solution. You need to destroy the target with
killing an ant with a sledgehammer.
You need with significant lower price. For destroy something that costs €200,000, you need to have something that costs €3,000.
So let me just round up here with two last questions, and that is, again, we keep talking about Ukrainian inventiveness. They are adapting constantly. The industries that you represent, the companies that your association represents, they are working on all of these things, and they are at the forefront of this technology in particular, drone and anti-drone technologies. When this war, as all wars do, ends, do you see a future for the Ukrainian arms industry on a global or a regional stage?
Definitely. And we have like traditional markets that are used for Ukrainian technique, because even 2014, 2021, Ukraine has significant part of the international military market. Basically, most focused on the maintaining, repairing, upgrading of Soviet technique, selling some Ukraine-owned solution. But now we saw the high interest for our products because when it's not like only for exhibition and it's not like only the question from the common guy from the, I don't know, 7-Eleven retail seller, but from the military, they always ask how does it work on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
They never faced with the actual enemy, and they never know how the actual enemy will make the choices and decision and change the frequency and a lot of stuff to avoid of jamming, because they never faced it. It's absolutely different for compare for the Afghanistan, when the, like 777 stand in the same place, like have a breakfast, shoot several rounds in the direction of Taliban, then go to play the volleyball or basketball or football or whatever else, have
It
a
was
lunch,
a different war. Yeah.
go there, shoot in there, but in the same position. We don't have the same position because our enemy will destroy this position after the first round in 5 minutes. That's why you need to adopt and you need to understand the tactic and the potential of your enemy. And in case country is not involved in the active conflict, and not only in the active conflict, but in active conflict of the development enemy, because one thing is to fight with the rebels in Syria, who has Pakistan's AK and 60 years old munition that sometimes can shoot, actually. Or you have the war with the highly developed and really also huge and powerful army. Because I can't say that Russia is weak or Russia have bad technology. In some spheres, they're really good. And they're also cost-effective because we have the same roots. We are not one nation, but we have same roots from the Soviet Union. Soviet Union was focused on the simple, cost-effective solutions that are ready to use for any stupid guy that they're catching from the street. They can maintain, operate, repair with no lot of skills. And they should be cheap because you need it in millions. You can afford it in millions in case expensive. So they have the same attitude. That's why they also highly developing in counter-fighting with us. Because Ukraine first start to use FPV drones as the attack drones. Russian understands that it actually works and try to ramp up this gap. And it's like
every new technique, every new ability that one side develops, the other side seems to be finding a countermeasure to, which is kind of the history of war.
It's always all the race.
But I think you're right. I think Ukraine is at the forefront, certainly, of drone technology, but having actually been involved in a conflict, sadly, that it speeds development. So now we see things like not only are you selling or promoting your industry globally, but Ukrainians are also teaching other nations how to do. We have the JTEC, facility out in Poland teaching NATO.
It's really a good point because in the beginning of the war, even with the starting of using of this all the drone technology, it was also challenges for us internally in Ukraine to persuade our military guys that the role of the drone on the battlefield is significant. A lot of military generals are really conservative. They study 30 years ago, and they still believe in that model of the world. The same with the European or other Western country. It's hard to change, like also the system, military system. You need to change the structure to use drone in enormous quantity. You need to have the operator in staff because you need to prepare this operator. You can't buy the FPV in case you have the FPV operator. How you will explain it for your Congress why you need to purchase like additional 100,000 of something. They will ask you, where's the structure? Who will be operating them? You need to change the structure. You need to change the strategy. You need to change the training course. So you need to do a lot of things, and you need to change your mind. You need to understand that not everything can be like done by the ballistic missiles, cruise missile F-35 or the aircraft's other models. So you need to be also present on the battlefield, not only with tanks, but with the also supporting the unmanned ground platform. You need to really have not like one person in the platoon who can operate the drone, but like 10 person of platoon who can operate the drone. So now the proportion of person who are like just the troopers in the tranchee and the drone operator, it can be like 3 person in the tranchee and 30 person who will support them and protect them against the drones, against the Russian attack troopers, against the technique. So the proportion of operators increased enormously, and it also was challenging to change in our system. Even we have this on the battlefield. It was launched like as the separated military force, the unmanned platform, like last year. And as I said, we have the companies with the history for more than 10 years, and they haven't like a lot of orders from the government because we have lack of financing, and said, okay, we have like 1 or 2 reconnaissance drones. It's okay. It's enough for us. So we also should change, and we continuously changing also the structure, also the tactic, because with just receiving something and not receiving the proper tactic of using, you have no 100% efficiency. What we actually can be also interested in the foreign market to provide in whole cycle, the product, the maintaining, training, and tactic of using of these actual products, because it's also the effectiveness of using of some drones are different compared with different divisions. For one division, it can be like 5 higher efficiencies than for their neighbors because of the tactic of using. They understand how to use it for 100%. And what is advantage for the Ukrainian industry, we have like day-to-day response and have day-to-day modification according to the battlefield. In case you want to be on this market, you need to adopt, you need to fit with the requirements from the battlefield. And also we launched the system when the actual division can choose what kind of drone and what the producer of the drone they will purchase by their own money. So they will in fact invest and purchase the most effective and efficient solutions from the market, because of they are trying it, because they understand how they can effectively use it on exactly this battlefield. Because even in Ukraine we have huge front line, and what is work in like Kherson region on the south can't work in Kursk region, for example, on the Sumy region on the east,
or outside of Kharkiv. Yeah, it's all different
because of different counterparts.
And the adaptability. Look, I think I agree 100%. I think that having gone through the furnace of war, and you get steel, your steel gets tempered because that's sadly how you develop. Ukraine is going to be at the forefront of this new technology, how it's used tactically, how it's adapted to your enemy. All of these things are something that Ukraine is going to be at the forefront after the war ends. But that leads me to my last question, and that is this. Given the capacity domestically of Ukraine's military defense industry, given what the West, whether it's Europeans waking up and providing more support for Ukraine, because there's the recognition maybe the U.S. is going to walk away.
We'll see.
We'll see. But what do you need to win this war domestically, internationally? And I guess at the end of the day, how confident are you of ultimately Ukrainian armed forces being able to achieve some sort of success in this war?
We still have the mix of solutions that we can provide internally and receive from our partners. We still lack of long-range solution to destroy the Russian military infrastructure, because as it was with the strategic bombers, it's like rare metals. You have the limited quantity. In case you destroy them, they will never have them again. And they can produce it. In case we will destroy with the long-range missile or ballistic missiles the factory which are producing the Iskanders, ballistic missiles, they will never renew this production. In case we will destroy the factory which is producing of the Sukhoi planes, they will never renew the production of this type of planes. So we both need the support to fight on the battlefield, but we also need the long-range support, not only with our deep strikes, because deep strikes has the limited possibilities to hit the proper targets.
And also to do it repeatedly. I mean, an operation like Spiderweb is probably going to be few and far between.
Yes. I'm pretty sure that's something you will find out.
The Russians will find. So,
and we still need these several capacities also to protect our own industries, anti-air solution, to give what we need to defend the front line. We can mostly do it with our own industries, with munition, with the FPV drones, with the optic fiber drones, with the jamming system, with just the small armaments, etc., etc. And we need the joint solution for the long-range hitting. What actually Israel does, they destroy the possibility of enemy hit the territory of Israel. In case the best anti-air system is to destroy the ballistic missile on the ground or destroy the plane on the ground. In case you have no planes, you can launch the rockets. In case they don't have 295, they will have no possibility to launch several type of rockets at all, because it just fits for this plane. And in case you don't have it, so you need to have the new choice. You need to use the Tu-160, and it's extremely costly. Not even in times of money, but in types of resource of this plane, because they need to scare all over the world with Tu-160 as the plane who can launch the nuclear weapon. In case you don't have this type of plane, you can use this type of munition. In case you will destroy the factory where they produce the ballistic missiles, you can't use the ballistic missiles against the Ukraine, because they will save it for the next time when it will be more probably for them proper. And when you destroy all day, what now is one of the worst things on the battlefield is using of these flying bombs.
The glide bombs, the FABs. Yeah.
The only way to stop it is to destroy the plane. It's the easiest and best way how to avoid hitting by these gliding bombs. You just need to destroy the planes. In case we will have the anti-air systems that can close 100 kilometers near the front line, we last month or this month destroyed one of Su-35. Also with some interesting solution. And in this case, they will be afraid to go near the front line. So they stop to use the gliding bombs. So it will be still World War I when the people by the feet go to Ukrainian trenches. And in any case, they has also the lack of the stuff. They have also the lack of munition. In case you are powerful and independent, you don't ask the North Korea shitty ammunition. You don't ask the Iran their kind of munition, because you are powerful and independent. You don't rely on anybody. You can cover all your needs by your own. No. In case you are powerful and independent, you don't ask the Korean army to defend your region.
And if they could have done it themselves, they already would have done it. This narrative that they're holding back for some reason, I think, is
unfortunately
a myth.
Their allies are more proactive and more energy, has more energy considered to our allies.
Ukrainian allies, I'm afraid, are still figuring out
but still
how much they want and how important Ukraine is to
we really appreciate with all this support. We understand that it's easy to send by Kimchen somebody the thousands of their men because they don't care.
Yeah,
they absolutely don't care.
Yeah.
The price of the North Korean even less than the price of
the
Russia.
French, the Americans, they all have an electorate.
Of course,
to answer to.
the main.
But you're still confident, no matter. I know it'll be harder, but I want to finish with this last thought. Ukraine, in your mind, has the capacity, the ability, the will to still find success in this war.
Of course, even because I am still live in Kyiv. My family still live in Kyiv. My children go to school and kindergarten in Kyiv. So definitely I believe in our victory. In 2022, I was on my working place with my colleagues because we are still believed in Ukraine, because we still believe in that work that we need to do. It's important and it's helpful for our protection. And that's why our government still in Kyiv, our president still in Kyiv, our members of parliament still in Kyiv. So it's also representation of our strong belief in our victory, in our survivance. Because on the other hand, we can remove our families, we can remove our production place, but we don't want to go anywhere else. Honestly, I'm originally from the Donetsk region.
Mm-hmm.
My city is occupied. My wife is from Zaporizhia region. Her native city is occupied. And we are not represent the Russian peace.
No.
We are not represent Russia as the huge culture, etc., etc., etc. We don't want like crazy drunk Russian army man explaining that he, I don't know, protect the Dostoevsky and Pushkin legacy. Unfortunately, he didn't treat him.
No, and also defending Russian empire. Well, I'm also here in Kiev, and I'm not going anywhere. I have a strong belief in Ukrainian success in this war, not least of which because of the inventiveness and the will and the ability to provide your own defenses. We're going to keep doing it. And please, we're fighting this information war here at On the Edge. This is an important part of all of this defense aspect. So please, if you like this conversation, click on the subscribe button and share it. And Serhiy Goncharov, I am very grateful for the time that you have spent here. And I wish you all the best. And I hope that you will continue to be the defense that Ukraine needs.
Thank you. Together with all our allies, with joint actions, with joint forces, we can do anything, actually. As we said, we are already in the defense shell of the Europe. We already also the significant part of the defense umbrella of the Europe, because we are also the protective the European values, democratic values, and show how the democratic country should fight with the autocratic regime.
And a despot like Putin. Thanks very much for your time, Serhiy.
Thank you.